Every fantasy world, whether it's built on mythology, history, fairy tales, or as a grimdark setting, has a foundation. Even if that foundation isn't explicitly told, it still exists. It lingers in the ruins beneath a character's feet, in the sayings passed down through generations, and in the echoes of ancient conflicts that continue to shape the present. Today, we're getting practical in our series on ancient lore. You have your world, you have your ancient history, or maybe you're still building it. But how do you use ancient lore effectively? How do you make it feel real, not just as something that happened in the past, but as something that still matters? Welcome to Just in Time World Building series on building ancient lore with your host, Marie Mullaney. Okay, so this part of ancient lore world building is really key to immersive world building and creating stories that pull readers into your world. So today we're going to break this episode down into three major sections. How ancient lore shapes everyday life, weaving ancient conflicts into your story, and artifacts, runes, and forgotten magic. So, let's start with how history lingers in the daily lives of your characters. The past isn't just buried in forgotten ruins or lost in dusty tombs. It lives on in the very fabric of the world. In our own history, we see it everywhere. The names of Roman gods shape our calendar. Our system of measuring time based on 60 traces its origins back to ancient Sumeria, as I referenced in the second episode in this very series. Even our superstitions carry echoes of long-gone civilizations. Your fantasy world should be no different. The trick to making ancient lore feel real is understanding that history leaves marks, even when people no longer actively think about it. They simply live with the consequences. Consider how many sayings we have about weaving and spinning, remnants of an era when textile production was so central to daily life it shaped language. Why is an unmarried woman of a certain age called a spinster? Because in times when few professions were open to women, spinning was one of the ways they could earn a living independently. And for more of my thoughts on spinning, check out the information card. Superstitions follow a similar path. Why is the number 13 considered unlucky? We don't know for certain, though it might be lunar cycles or Babylonian mathematics or something else. However, two ancient stories provide strong foundations for the belief as applied to the dinner table. In Norse mythology, Loki crashed a banquet of 12 gods, bringing the number to 13, before orchestrating the death of Balder, the beloved hero. In Christian tradition, the Last Supper had 13 people at the table, Jesus and his 12 disciples, with Judas the betrayer as the 13th man. These myths combined to make 13 an ominous number of guests to have around the dinner table in Western cultures. So in your world, how does ancient history shape daily life? How does old lore influence languages and idioms? How do customs and traditions reflect forgotten realities? Are there superstitions, perhaps tied to numbers, colors, or actions? Maybe rubbing your belly after a meal is unlucky because the ancient god did so before spilling forth 9 demons of destruction. What about calendars and measurements? How do people count time, measure land, or track weight? Does the layout of cities reflect buried histories? A winding, illogical street pattern might be the result of building over ancient ruins. Speaking of city layouts, a great real-world example comes from Johannesburg, which isn't even that old. The city, for the most part, has well-structured layout, except in its older sections where the streets twist and narrow unexpectedly. This chaotic layout exists because of a combination of Johannesburg's start as a mining town and the competing land claims that resulted as it grew into a city. And as I say, it's not even that old. History has already driven the inner city to bananas. However, be wary. The key to integrating ancient lore into everyday life is subtlety. Readers don't need a history lesson every time they encounter an old saying or superstition. Instead, let these details exist naturally in your world. If characters routinely avoid rubbing their belly in reference to the god let that stand on its own. Maybe, much later, a storyteller recounts the tale of the gods spilling demons into the world. And this way, that layered lore makes the world feel deep and lived in without resorting to info dumps. A great example of this comes from A Song of Ice and Fire, where Martin embeds history in his world through things like his house words, winter is coming, or hear me roar. Also in old songs and passing references to legendary figures like Bran the Builder, Lan the Clever, Garth Greenhand. The superstition, dark wings, dark words, suggests that ravens have always brought bad news. And this is organic because it's simply absorbed into the daily life of the character. Here's a practical exercise for you. Go through your world and choose 3 things inherited from ancient history. It could be a phrase, a superstition, or a forgotten tradition. Then ask yourself, why does this still matter today? Where did it originally come from? How does it naturally appear in the daily lives of your characters? By embedding these elements in your story, you'll make your world feel richer and more authentic without overwhelming your reader with exposition. Let me know in the comments what 3 things you worked on, and let's move on to weaving ancient conflicts into your story. Even after a war ends, its consequences ripple through time, shaping cultures long after the last battle is fought. In fantasy, ancient conflicts can be a powerful way to add weight and stakes to your story. A world shaped by the echoes of war feels richer and more real. Take John Gwain's Bloodsworn series, for example. The old war against the gods may be over, but its consequences define the world. Those with God's blood are no longer revered. They are hunted, enslaved, or killed. The entire conflict of the book is driven by these ancient wounds, as those with divine heritage seek to reclaim their lost power. Similarly, in Adrian Tchaikovsky's Shadows of the Apt, the worm, a terrifying and powerful kingdom, re-emerges long after the war that originally sealed them away has been forgotten. The characters don't even realize the ancient war happened until the worm stirs again. And suddenly they are forced to dig into history, uncover lost knowledge, and learn how their ancestors once defeated this threat. That deep historical weight makes the conflict feel earned and immersive. Ancient wars can carry timeless themes: vengeance, redemption, reconquest, or even forgiveness. But if you want your world's history to feel meaningful, these past conflicts must still affect the present. And here's a couple of ways to accomplish that. 1. Geopolitical fallout. Wars leave behind strange borders, old grudges, and unresolved disputes. Look at Europe today. Many of its borders are a direct result of the world wars. After World War II, the decision was made, just accept the borders as they are. The result is a landscape filled with odd national divisions, relics of past treaties, and weird little hotspots. In your fantasy world, you can do the same. Maybe a long-forgotten war creates bizarre political divisions that no longer make sense, yet no one dares change them. Perhaps 2 nations exist in a forced peace, their old battle lines still visible in how they govern, trade, or mistrust each other. 2. Lost knowledge. What if a war wiped out an entire school of magic or erased key historical truths? Shadows of the Apt does this masterfully. The original war against the worm wiped a whole kingdom out of memory. Imagine a magical discipline once common, now extinct, because its practitioners were exterminated in a brutal purge. or an empire whose greatest achievements are lost because its libraries were burnt to the ground. 3. Blood feuds and generational curses. Wars don't just shape nations, they shape families, grudges, and identities. A noble house might still carry the shame or glory of an ancestor's betrayal. Maybe two families have been feuding for centuries over a war that neither side fully remembers, their hatred passed down through stories and traditions rather than facts. In a fantasy setting, old blood feuds might be bound by actual curses. Maybe a family is doomed to serve the victors of an ancient war, bound by an unbreakable oath, a la the ghosts who served Aragorn in Return of the King. Or perhaps a defeated nation still honors the terms of a peace treaty signed centuries ago, even though their conquerors are long gone. 4. Character impact, how the past shapes the present. The best way to make history feel real is to show its impact on your characters. Are they proud of their ancestors or ashamed? Do they feel trapped by history or determined to break free? Are they fighting for justice, revenge, or because they only know half the truth? And here's the exercise for this section. Create one historical event that still affects your protagonists. It could be a war that shaped the current power balance, a betrayal that stains the family name, an ancient alliance that your protagonist is bound to honor or break. Make sure this event still matters in the present story, whether through politics, personal struggle, or unresolved tensions. Before we talk about artifacts, ruins, and forgotten magic, let me invite you to sign up for my newsletter. It contains actual content, articles about my thoughts on world building projects I'm currently working on, as well as deeper details of videos that I am currently scripting and researching for YouTube. And it comes out 4 times a year, so I'm not going to overwhelm you with mail. It's completely free, and the link to it is in the description down below. Thank you very much for subscribing. Okay, now back to ancient lore. And let's move on to the final element of ancient lore: artifacts, ruins, and forgotten magic. Okay, the past isn't just found in books, especially not in a fantasy world. It physically exists, woven into the land itself. Ruins, relics, and lost artifacts make history tangible. This is true even in our world. Think of Göbekli Tepe, an ancient temple complex predating Stonehenge. Consider the unearthed city of Jericho or the terracotta army of China. Each discovery made history real, proving that the echoes of the past are still beneath our feet. And your fantasy world should be no different. So let's break this down into 3 subsections, starting with designing a meaningful artifact. A great artifact is more than just a cool weapon or a magical trinket. It tells a story in physical form. If an object has survived for centuries, it should carry the weight of history with it. A well-designed artifact should have a history. Who made it? Why was it made? A unique tray. What makes it special? Is it magical, cursed, or simply renowned? A modern significance. Why does it matter now? A fantastic example is Andúril from The Lord of the Rings, the reforged sword of Aragorn. Originally called Narsil and wielded by Elendil, the sword shattered in the battle against Sauron. In its reforging, it symbolizes the enduring strength of men and their capacity to rise again against the darkness. Andúril isn't just a weapon. It's a physical representation of lost glory, redemption, and fate. When creating an artifact, consider how its past still influences the world. Maybe it's a lost relic that proves a long-forgotten war ended differently than people believe. Perhaps it holds a curse that once protected a kingdom, but now threatens its heirs. An artifact without historical weight is just an object, a well-crafted one, but just an object. But artifacts aren't the only tangible remains of the past, so let's talk about forgotten buildings. Ruins are the skeletons of history, scattered across the world, whispering of fallen civilizations. In fantasy, they should be more than just scenic set pieces. They should be interactive parts of your world building. A ruin should hold a mystery. What secrets are buried within? Present a danger. Are they traps, monsters, curses? Even mundane hazards like collapsing structures. It should also reveal something about the world's history. What can be learned from its architecture, murals, or remains? Consider Pompeii, a city buried under volcanic ash, its people frozen in time. A similar discovery in a fantasy setting could reveal lost knowledge, hidden dangers, or even rewrite history. But of course, this is fantasy, so let's talk about magic. Magic feels more compelling when it's rooted in history rather than just existing without explanation. Maybe magic was once stronger. Why did it fade? Were certain spells forbidden? What happened the last time they were used? In my world of Sangwell Chronicles, the Empire of Lumiaron banned sang sorcery or blood magic for millennia because it was once the weapon of their enemies. The magic didn't vanish, but it became taboo, whispered about in hushed tones, and wielded only in secrecy. Another example comes from Shadowrun's Ghost Dance, a powerful ritual that caused Mounts Hood, Rainier, St. Helens, and dams to erupt simultaneously. This wasn't just a spell, it was an event that reshaped the world. In Shadowrun lore, after the Great Ghost Dance, the United States admitted defeat and drew up the Treaty of Denver. Sadly, that's not what happened in the real world, where the Ghost Dance was actually a religious movement, not a magical ritual. And the reaction of the government to the Ghost Dance was far more stampy outy than turned out to be the case in Shadowrun lore. And basically the whole series of events culminated in the events at Wounded Knee in 1890, and I'll leave a link down below for those interested in reading about all of that. Warning, you're gonna need a strong stomach. Sorry, back to fantasy. Okay, so if you want magic to feel significant in your world, tie it to something that happened. And here's your exercise for this section. Design one ruin or artifact that ties into your main plot. Even if it's just a forgotten tomb, give it a history, who built it, what happened there, and why it still matters. Did you like the exercises? Let me know in the comments. History isn't just a backdrop. It's a living force in your world. Whether it's through language, relics, or ancient grudges, the past should always whisper through the present. And in the last episode of this series, we'll explore how to give that history to your reader without engaging in massive info dumps. So make sure you subscribe for that. And a very giant thank you to all of my members, especially the just-in-timers of the Build It in Stone level, where we have Lupex Lakeshire, Katie Kofi Mug, and Tony Lamanna. And to the middle kids of Build It in Wood, Pablo Barrios, Glacier Maniac, and Patricio and Carrie. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the thumbs up button and check out my video on how to create heroic myths in your world, or whatever the algorithm is recommending for you right now. And I will see you soon for another episode of Just in Time World Building.